Hello, today we try to prove that there had been a world culture in 10,500 BC, roughly 900 years before the Great Flood. What does culture mean? The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it as a set of shared attitudes, values, goals and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. In archaeology, however, we don't use the word culture, we use the word horizon. So horizon is a distinctive type of first artifact that is found across a large geographical area and third from a limited time period. An example, for example, is the linear band pottery. The linear pottery culture had been a major archaeological horizon of the European Neolithic, roughly around 7,000 years ago, 5,500 to 4,500 BC. But what we see here, it is defined by one artifact being found in all these places, and they all had linear patterns or linear bands on their pottery. So when you found that kind of artifact, you could conclude that they belong to the same culture or horizon. So now we are trying to look for an artifact which had been could be found in large geographical areas in the ancient world. We have 5 different areas where we're going to. We are starting at the MENKAURE pyramid in Egypt, in Africa. The second place where we are looking at is CUSCO, the ancient capital of the Inca in Peru in South America. And from there we are flying over to Easter Island, to a place called VINAPU, and it's ceremonial center, and there we're looking at an artifact. And from there we're flying over west again to Japan, to the Imperial Palace of Old Tokyo. And the last stop of our travel will be the YANGSHAN quarry in northern China in the Nanjing province. And from there we are flying back from Asia all the way to Africa, to Egypt, back to our GIZA complex. So let's start with the first site. This is the pyramid of MENKAURE. It's one of the 3 pyramids of Giza. And what we're interested in here is the casings and the walls of that pyramid, and have a look at these nozzles in the which I circled. You will find them in the other pictures again, and we see in the left picture on the one side the stones there are not processed more, but then on the right you see that they have been processed and the nozzles have been are gone. So, but where do you think that these nozzles come from? There's this theory that these ancient builders, they had some sort of chemical where they could liquefy a rock with some sort of acids made from mines, or mostly gold mines, and to bring these rocks in shape. And these nozzles would have been the place where the wooden bars push against the wall. And you see that also in concrete here on the right side, the small picture, that also the wood imprints its structure on the concrete, and these bars which push against the concrete, these kind of bars, they would create these kind of nozzles. So then we are flying over to South America, to our second location, and there in Cusco you see the same nozzles as in Egypt, and you see the same style of rocks. And here the stone masonry is even a little bit better, where they literally melt into each other, these rocks. So they must have used this chemical also on the edges so that they can literally melt them into each other. You see it on the right picture. They fit perfectly. An amazing ability of stone masonry. And when we go to VINAPU in Easter Island, so it's in the middle of the Pacific, you see that this stone wall, which faces directly the winter solstice, you see the stone masonry is exemplary, the same level as Peru. And I put a little circle around. There you see they use the same technique to even fit a small rock into this big wall. When we go to Japan, the Tokyo Palace, we have to differentiate. It's the old structure under the palace. So as in Peru, where the Inca built upon these walls, so we assume that these walls are much older than the Incas. Here we assume that these walls are much older than the buildings they are put upon. And you see here the same intertwined masonry, where the rocks literally melt into each other. And on the bottom right, these kind of terraces, the same the same shape you find in Peru too. And our last part of the journey will be Yangshan Quarry in China. Here you don't really see a wall, but what you see is these giant nozzles where the granite has to have melted in shape, because processing this kind of giant rock with just the copper tools is not possible. So you see here they used a little differentiation of this nozzle technique, but they melted the whole rock. So the result shows that a horizon, again, is a distinctive type of artifact, which we saw the same artifact in 5 different places, that is found across a large geographical area. Well, they could have proved that because we were looking all around the world and from a limited time period. Here it's a little bit tricky because when we see here the limited time period, we know from other sources that the pyramid in Giza that was built 10,500 BC, so that means 12,500 years ago. Because it's a rock, we can't really determine, we can't do a C14 method. So for Peru, East Island, Japan and China, we just have to, we don't know. But what you do know is, from one of my previous videos I talked in length about that there had been a great flood in 9600 BC, so roughly 900 years after the pyramid had been built, and it was caused by a huge asteroid which crashed into Greenland. So what we see here is that we can conclude there had been a global horizon or a global culture which even predated the big asteroid or the big flood. I'm looking forward to your comments in the section below, and please press the subscribe button. Thank you very much. See you soon.